One of the first things that you need to do when you are ready to create a blogging website is to come up with a domain name for your site. So many people overthink their domain name and they get stuck in this spot. In this video, I am covering 7 things that you need to consider when researching domain name ideas for your blog so you can pick one and move on. Hi, I'm Maureen from thecreativeimpact.com, where I help new and growing female entrepreneurs build a blogging business on WordPress without stress so that they can turn their knowledge and passions into profits and make a massive impact on the world. If you are interested in tips and tutorials on blogging and building a blogging business, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and then ring that little bell right next to it so you don't miss any of the content I post on this channel. All right, before we dive into the 7 things you need to consider when choosing a domain name, we need to get really clear on what a domain name is. So a domain name is simply the name of your site. It is the address where those using the internet can find your site. So my domain name is thecreativeimpact.com, Google's is google.com, YouTube's is youtube.com. You can purchase a domain name through a domain registrar like Namecheap or GoDaddy. But if you're self-hosting your site, I highly recommend that you check with your hosting provider first because they may include a free domain for your first year. I've included a link in the description below to Bluehost, which is who I use and love and recommend. And if you use my link, you can get a free domain for your first year with your hosting. Let's also quickly discuss how a domain name differs from a URL. So a URL, also known as a Universal Resource Locator, is the full web address used to find a web page. So the URL contains the domain name within it, but it can lead to a number of pages within that website. So for example, HTTPS ://thecreativeimpact.com/about or HTTPS ://thecreativeimpact.com/work with me. So that is an extension of the domain. A URL is an extension of the domain. All right, now that we're clear on what a domain name is and how it differs from a URL, let's discuss 7 things you want to do when choosing a domain name. So number 1 is you want to go with a .com. The majority of people assume that a website ends with .com. People are more familiar with this domain extension than any other, and they're going to default to this when typing it in an address bar. And since it is the most common, it also carries more authority and helps with your branding. So you're going to have to put an extra effort to get people to remember that your site has a different extension if you stray away from a .com. In the case that your ideal domain name is taken, which does happen, you can always add a modifier to the end like academy or authority or company. So if thecreativeimpact.com was taken, I could have made it thecreativeimpactacademy.com or thecreativeimpactcompany.com as a way to work around still being able to have that domain name. If you're really firm on having that name and is already taken, then the next best thing is to go with a .net or a .co. Number 2, make sure that your domain name is easy to say and spell. When considering domain name ideas, you want to make sure that it is so easy to pronounce and share. The less complicated your domain name, the more likely it's going to be remembered. You want to keep it short and simple. Do not include unusual spellings of the words like websites with a Z at the end instead of an S, or double letters like website solutions where you have websites with an S and then solutions after it with another S because people won't know do you put one S or two S's. I recommend staying away from hyphens and numbers if at all possible. If someone spells your site incorrectly, they're likely to get redirected to another site and then never find you at all. So I find like people who put a number in their domain name, people don't know if they're supposed to write the number out, like spell it out, or just write the number as it is on like a keyboard, like just type in the 4. If you really want an unusual spelling in a domain name, I recommend buying up the other domains with those misspellings that will then redirect your visitor to the main site. That way all your bases are covered. Number 3 is try using a keyword or 2 if it's at all possible. You want to be sure to take niche keywords into consideration when researching domain name ideas for your website. And if it's possible, try to include a strong keyword within that domain name. So a niche keyword can help with search engine optimization, also known as SEO. It can also help potential visitors quickly understand what your business offers and how you can help them. A word of caution with this: do not compromise the simplicity of your domain name by just stuffing it with keywords, because that can actually work against you. It's kind of like a fine line. If a keyword is making your domain too long or complicated, just leave it out. The fourth thing to consider when choosing a domain name is think about using your own name as the domain name. If you're having trouble finding a domain name that's available or one that encompasses your brand, really consider using your first and last name. Now, using your name, it can be a good choice if you're trying to brand yourself as an expert in your field, and it will likely be available unless you have a very common name, right? So in the case that you do have a common name, you can always put like a first initial or a middle name along with your last name. So you can modify that as well. Now, a word of warning with this: if your name has a really unusual spelling or it's hard to spell, then this might not be your best choice. Number 5 is a big one. You want to make sure you're not violating any trademarks. So once you have some domain name ideas that you like, you need to make sure that you are clear with them legally. Before registering for a domain, you need to confirm that the name is not already trademarked anywhere. And to check on this within the US, you can visit the US Trademark Electric Search System, and I will put a link to that in the description below. All right, number 6 is to think long-term when choosing a domain name. So it's important to really think long-term with this domain name, because once you build a business with a domain name, it can be very costly to your brand that you've built up, your SEO rankings, and quite frankly, your wallet to change it. If you think that you're likely going to branch out from a specific niche as you grow, it's wise not to limit yourself to a domain name that has specific keywords or is super specific to what you currently offer. The content you create will prove to be far more important than any domain name you pick, but it's a really good idea not to limit your long-term options too much when choosing a name. And number 7 is figure out your hosting prior to registering a domain name. So I touched on this briefly in the beginning of this video, but most of the web hosting companies out there offer domain registration services. Some hosting providers like Bluehost even offer that free domain when you're creating your hosting account for the first time with them. If you are starting a new WordPress website and you choose to host with Bluehost, you can register your domain name during the process, like the setup process, and get it for free for that first year. And after that, it's just going to cost you the same amount as any other domain registrar, around like $11.99 a year. So you need a domain name to create a website, so why not get it for free, right? Now, if you are ready to create your website and get your free domain name, I have included a link in the description below to my free blogging business bootcamp course. And this is a video course that's going to walk you step by step through all the setup. And even if you haven't made your domain name decision yet, there is a training video in this blogging bootcamp that shows you how you can get a temporary free domain name until you choose the one that you want to use for the year. So there are no excuses. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was. You can leave me a comment in the comment section below. Be sure to like this video if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the little bell so you don't miss any of the new videos I post on blogging and building a blogging business.